Okay, so question number 1, we're going to be looking at, okay, your inventory method is periodic and it is FIFO, okay? Assume that all purchases are made on account, round to the nearest penny, okay? So that's going to happen towards the very, very, very end, all right? So let's go ahead and also practice journalizing as well, just for the first month, so you can recognize how the flow of transaction is going to happen. So first things first is, okay, so here on June 5th, you purchased 1,000 toys at $1 each. Freight cost you $50. So let's go ahead and practice journalizing that first. So here I have the question number 2 right here. So I'm going to go ahead and practice in journalizing this little section right here. Okay, so on June 5th, what happened here? What am I going to journalize here?
Purchase expense.
Purchase expense, yes, because we know that we have periodic inventory. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in capitals so you guys can. Okay, so purchase expense. Okay, what else comes with the purchase expense?
Freight.
Freight expense. Remember, we have to calculate them as two separate costs. All right. And one of the things that we mentioned was that everything assumed that all purchases are made on account. So what is going to be my equal and opposite credit?
Accounts payable.
Good. Accounts payable. All right. So again, with the information that we just received, right, what was it? How much is my purchase expense going to be for?
$1,000.
$1,000. Good. So it's $1,000, right? 1,000 times 1 is going to get you your $1,000. Okay. And how much was freight? $50. Okay, bringing us a grand total of how much?
$1,050.
$1,050. Right. I'm gonna make a little note here so we know what this is. So purchased. $1,000 units. What did I buy? Toys? Was it toys?
Yes.
Toys, okay. At $1 each. Okay, good. So now, what is next? What do we have to do next? Okay, now we got to place it into our inventory worksheet. So, again, June 5th. Okay, 1,000 items at $1 with $50 freight. I'm going to format my cells real quick. Okay, so here we are. Formula here is going to be quantity times cost per item or unit cost, which is $1,000. Okay, my total cost is $1,050. What is my cost per item going to be?
Your total cost divided by quantity.
Say that again.
$1.05.
$1.05. Good. Good. Now we know this for sure that this number right here is actually going to be an even number. You can expand it just to test to make sure that that it is a solid number, and it is. So there's no rounding that needs to be done here. Okay. All right, now that we completed this, let's see what happened next. Okay. So then on June 7th, you returned 200 broken toys for a full refund. Huh. We returned 200 broken toys for a full refund. So here you have a couple options. You can choose to record this in the journal first, or you could actually choose to work this out in the worksheet and then figure out the journal later. So let's go ahead and do the second one. So if I returned 200 broken toys for a full refund, right, assuming what? How much did it cost me to purchase the items?
$1.
$1, right? You don't include freight because you can't return freight. So you're going to automatically go to your original purchasing price. Okay? Now, this is where we're going to go ahead and introduce you to the bottom half or the bottom right corner for the little section right here. It says returns, allowances, and discounts. So this is where you can go ahead and we're returning 200 items. Okay, how much did it cost me? We already figured it out. It was $1. Well, you only have one batch. So your assumption here is it's going to be $1. And of course, how do we figure out how much we actually got back? How much did it cost me to return all 200 items?
$200.
Exactly $200. Good. So now let's go ahead and journalize this now. Okay, now that we solved it right here, our returns is we returned 200 items at $1 each, costing me $200. So now that I come to my journal, what is actually going to happen here? How am I going to journalize this?
Returns?
Okay, good. Now,
But you have to put cash or accounts payable first.
correct. Because how did we pay for the items? Well, we didn't pay it yet. We owe them, right? So the assumption here is we need to reduce the amount that we owe because we're getting a refund, right? We didn't pay for it yet. So therefore, it's going to reduce our amount that we owe. All right? And then what's the account that you're going to associate this return for?
200.
Okay, so that's the amount, but what is the account that we're going to use?
Returns.
What kind of returns? Because in the next section, we will learn that there's another return that exists. Say that again.
Purchase return.
Purchase returns, yes. Purchase returns and allowances. Remember, that is going to be our account that we will use. And it is for the 200 items or for the $200. Right here, I'm going to make a note here that I returned 200 broken toys at $1 each, full refund. Okay? Good. So now that we've completed the journal, our inventory is also done as well. So now we can go ahead and move on to the next one. Okay? Is everyone good with me so far? Okay. All right. So what happened on June 10? We purchased 850 toys at $1.25 and the freight cost me $45. So here, this is where I'm going to ask you guys. What do you guys want to go first? Do you want to go to the journal first lay down the foundation? Or do you want to go to your worksheet first, complete it, and then go back to your journal?
Journal first.
Journal first. Okay. So, if on June 10 we purchased 800 toys, 850 toys at $1.25 with the freight costing $45. So how are we going to journalize this?
Purchase expense.
Purchase expense. Okay.
Freight.
Purchase expense, freight expense, good.
And accounts payable.
And accounts payable. I'm sorry, I'm having difficult time typing today. All right, and accounts payable. So, how much is my total purchase expense going to be?
$1,062.50.
Okay, so here, because we have Excel, you can actually just type in the formula here, and it can populate for you as well. I'm gonna format all of these real quick. Okay, so good, 1,062.50. Okay, how much was freight?
45.
So giving me my grand accounts payable total to be
1107.50.
1107.50. And I'm gonna go ahead and make a note here saying that I purchased 850 toys. At $125 each. Okay? All right. And now we need to go to our inventory worksheet. So now we have another batch that we just bought. This was on 6/10. Okay? 850 at 125 with a freight of 45. So then what's my purchase price going to be?
$1,062.50.
My total cost?
$1107.50.
$1107.50. And what is my cost per item going to be here?
1.302.
Okay. So as we look here, now we actually have an unrounded number. This number goes beyond the rounded pennies, right? If you choose to round now at $1.30, right? You're actually going to be costing each item a lot less. So this is a good thing that when you do round it here, you will get more money or more profit out of it. Now let's say this was 1.3056, right? If you round up, you're gonna cost too much, and at the end of the dollar, if you spend or if you get rid of 1,000 items, you lost a whole dollar right there. Right? Okay, so that's why it's very crucial that you choose whether to round now or to round later. Rounding up can hurt you in the long run if you round up too early. But if you do it like this, right, you keep it unrounded and wait till the very end to actually round out everything, you're more likely to, not cost yourself too much, but also you'd be able to, at the end of the day, the money that you have in there as what you've originally purchased is going to be gone at the end of the day regardless. So it's just a matter of how you're going to cost it and how it will affect your inventory, especially if you're selling about 1,000 items. Every thousandth of a penny actually makes a difference. So in this case, I'm going to teach you unrounded, and then when we reach the end of this problem, we round at the very end. Okay. So there you go. We plugged it in, and there it is. All right. So our inventory worksheet's done and our journal is complete. Okay. So what has happened next?
June 12, we returned 50 toys.
Okay. Why did we return them?
Wrong color.
Okay. What else is going to be there?
Discount 20%.
Yes. Even though we attempted to return the 50 toys, right? The vendor says, well, you could still sell them, but because we sent you the wrong toys, you know what? We'll give you a 20% discount. We're sorry. We apologize. Are you going to accept this 20%? And yes, we do accept it because it's true. We can maybe sell it out in our store saying it's a limited edition. It's another color. Okay. So now we made an agreement that we're willing to accept a 20% discount. Now, this is assumption that this came from the previous batch, right? Because oftentimes what you're going to come into is when you make lots of purchases of inventory, if you've already opened up the box in on June 5th, that's the first batch, right? Do you think your vendor's going to allow you to return from that same exact batch when you returned it on the 7th? Okay, assuming when you actually receive your items, first rule of thumb is you're gonna open everything and look at them. Check to make sure they work, or check to make sure that they are all there. Okay, so in this case, this return here applies to the one that just happened above it on June 10. Okay, little FYI right there. So now here the question is, you're trying to return 50 of the toys, but they're not going to give you a refund. Instead, they're going to give you a 20% discount. So how are you going to journalize this? Or how are you going to calculate this?
I guess debit accounts payable for the discount amount.
You are going to be debiting accounts payable for the discounted amount. So let's go ahead. So Dan wants to go into the journal first. We're going to recognize, what account are we going to be recognizing?
June 10.
What account are we going to be recognizing? We are going to be utilizing the batch that we purchased on June 10th, but what accounts are we actually going to?
Accounts payable.
Accounts payable, yes, because we're being credited money, right? Okay. And then what is the account that we're actually going to be recognizing this return for?
Would be purchases, returns, and allowances.
Purchase returns and allowances, yes. So this is, remember, if you guys remember, this is chapter 5.2. This is what a typical allowance is going to be. Okay, it isn't a return because we attempted to return. However, it's not a discount because this isn't what we originally had in the beginning. This wasn't discounted originally. It was only discounted because we were attempting to return something. So this is going to be considered an allowance. Okay, returns and allowances. Okay, so now that we've established our accounts, for how much are we actually going to record the discount at? How much money are we actually receiving back? Okay, so let's go ahead and break down this step one at a time. how much would you have received if you did a full refund? Let's just start there. How much would it be if you actually just completely refunded the whole thing?
The whole 850?
No, just the 50 toys that you requested to return.
6250.
62.50. So that's 50 times 125, right? 62.50. Now, out of that 62.50, how much money are you actually getting returned back? How much is it discounted for?
20%.
So what is 20% of 62.50?
1250.
12.50. That's how much money you're actually getting back. So that's how you figure out what the discounted amount or the allowance is for, right? You first solve for how much is it going to cost you, or how much money are you actually going to get if it was a full refund. And if, because you're only getting a portion of that money, how much of that portion of the money are you actually getting back? So 12.50 is correct. You're only getting 20% of the 62.50. Okay, and there it is, 12.50. So I'm going to go ahead and place it right here that I returned 50 toys at where's my at sign? At $1.25 for 20% discount. Okay, so now let's go ahead and complete the journal. Complete the inventory worksheet. So now we need to go down to the bottom right here. Okay, now how much of the items are we actually returning?
50.
Let me ask that question again. How much of the items are we actually returning?
0.
0, because we're not giving them back.
We got tucked into a discount instead.
Exactly. We got talked into keeping the items, but receiving a 20% discount instead. So we didn't actually return anything. Okay. However, we know that we're getting a discount of 50 of those items. Okay. So therefore, if it cost me $1.25 for each item, okay. So my formula is going to be $1.25. And I'm going to do parentheses for this one so I can keep it nice and organized. So we're going to do $1.25 times 50, because that's how much we're trying to return. Okay? And we are only receiving 20% from it. So therefore, $12.50 is our answer here. And we'll see what happens when we actually need to apply this discount to our items when we calculate it. Okay, so there you go. Here is taking a look at that discount that we received off of those 50 items that we purchased with our 850 items. Okay, so this is how we're filling it out. Okay. Good. So now that we completed the journal, we completed the inventory worksheet. Let's see what happened next. Okay. Then on June 20th, we purchased another 500 toys at $1.50, with the freight costing you $25. Okay? So, what are we going to do with this? You want to journalize, or you want to go to the inventory worksheet? We're going to journalize it first. Okay. So, question number 2. So now that we're going to journalize this, it is now June 20th. Okay. What's my journal going to look like?
Purchase expense.
Purchase expense. What else?
Freight expense.
Purchase expense, freight expense. Good.
And accounts payable.
And accounts payable. All right. So how much of my purchase expense is going to be there? What is my purchase expense going to be? Sorry, excuse me.
did we get?
500.
Huh.
Yes, 500. And
$1.50.
correct.
750.
Seven
$7.50.
$750. How much was my freight?
25.
Let me see. Freight was 25, yes. So what's my grand total here?
775.
775. And I'm going to make a note right here that I purchased 500 toys at $1.50 each. Okay. Now that my journal's complete, I'm going to go to my inventory worksheet and I'm going to record this in here. So June 20th, we purchased 500 toys at $1.50 and freight was 25. So what's my total purchase price here?
750.
What is my total cost?
775.
And what is my cost per item?
$1.55.
$1.55 even. Okay, as you can see. Okay, good. Now that my worksheet's done, my journal is done, let's see what also happened next. So then on June 21st, you returned 200 defective toys for a full refund. So 20 of these toys are defective and you requested for a full refund. So I'm going to go to my journal first.
Account payable.
Accounts payable.
Good. We're getting a full refund back. So therefore, we need to decrease the money that we owe. Okay. All right. And because it's a refund and you're actually returning the product, it's going to be a purchase returns and allowances. So, how much is my actual refund I'm actually getting?
$30.
Yes, 20 times 150 gives you $30. So therefore, I'm going to be returning all of that amount. Okay? And I'm going to go ahead and write return 20 toys at 150 each, full refund. Okay? Last but not least, now we're going to complete our little section here. So how many items did we actually return?
20.
All right? How much did it cost me to purchase this batch?
$1.50.
It cost me $1.50. Good, right? Make sure you don't calculate the $1.55, right? We cannot return freight in this scenario. Okay? So again, if you just multiply these numbers across, it is $30 even. Okay? Good. All right. Next here is on June 25th, we purchased our last 600 toys for $1.75 with the freight costing you $30. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you the first way real quick, where you plug in everything in your inventory worksheet first, and then plugging in everything for your journal. So in this case, if I were to do that, I purchased 600 toys at $1.75 each, with the freight costing me $30. So what I can do is, now that if I go into my inventory worksheet, I just write in my date. Was it 750 toys? 600 at $1.75 with a freight of 30. Okay, if I pull this information down, right, what's my purchase price going to be?
1,050,
1,050. What's my total cost going to be?
1,080,
1,080. And lastly, what is my cost per item?
$1.80,
$1.80. Now, hold on. Let me double confirm that the freight was 30. Good. So now that we solved it in our box first, then I can go to my journal and say, well, I know exactly what it is, right? So if I go June 25th, I know that I'm going to save some time here by copying and pasting. I know that my purchase expense, okay, is going to be what I solved in my table for, which was $10.50. And I know my freight is $30, so therefore my total cost is going to be my $10.80. Okay, so whichever way makes it easier for you to do. And this one just allows you to not have to calculate twice. Okay, but oftentimes what happens too is if you don't journalize and you're very and you're just so focused on the inventory worksheet that sometimes you'll actually forget this actual part right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and just make sure I show you that you can do both if it makes sense for you to not have to calculate twice. It's whatever shortcut that you find most feasible. Okay, so 175 each. There you go. All right, good. Now the last piece of information is that on June 30th, you have a total of 1,250 toys on hand. So this is our ending inventory, 1,250. So this is the part where you actually have to go ahead and go to your worksheet first in order to complete the rest of your journal. Okay? So let's go to my worksheet, and I know that I have at the end of the day is going to be a total of 1,250. Okay? So now that we reach the end of our section here, let's go ahead and total up our columns. Okay. So how much items did I actually make purchases for?
2050,
You made a purchase of 20, say that again, 2050? How did you get 2050?
I added up the purchase expense. Oh, 2950, I'm sorry. Where did I get 2050 from?
That's what I'm asking too. So let's go ahead and equal do that again. Anybody else can confirm? What is the total purchases?
950.
29.50. Okay. What is my total purchase price?
Is it 3862.50?
Yeah.
38.62.50. Good. Okay. What is my total freight price or my freight cost?
150?
150. Okay. And then what is my total cost going to be? What's my total cost?
4,012.50.
Good. 4,012.50. Okay, now that we completed that section, now we can go ahead and go down here. All right. So I total in purchases of quantity was my 2,950. I know that it cost me a grand total of 3,862.50. Now, this is where this is going to come into play. What was my total returns and allowances and discounts? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at our column here. This is where I'm going to go ahead. Yes, 220. Did you say 250, 220?
220.
Okay. This is where I'm going to go ahead and equal sum this little column here. Okay. So I can get a more accurate number. Oh, I'm in the wrong column. Okay, equals sum. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that this is true. Do I have a total of 220? Yes, you do. And how much is it in total is going to cost me? Or how much in total did I return?
242.50.
$242.50. Good. So now that we have this piece of information here, this is where we're going to plug it into this little section here. If we returned a total of 220 items and it cost me a total of $242.50, so I'm going to cell reference it from here. Okay. Now this is where my calculation is going to be. What is your subtotal? So this is where I'm going to take my total purchases. I'm going to subtract my returns and allowances. So how much subtotal items am I actually have in total?
2730.
2730. Same thing that's going to apply here. If I originally purchased 3,862.50 and I'm returning 242.50, what is my total going to be here?
620.
Good. And as we remember, freight has nothing to do with this. This is a completely separate cost. You can't return freight. It just doesn't happen. Okay? So now we can go ahead and add our freight in, right? Freight doesn't have any effect on quantity, but it does have effect on the cost. So here I have a total of $27.30, and what is my total cost going to be now?
3770.
Good. $37.70. All right. Of course, we don't have beginning inventory, so we can just pull the information down. Okay. But we will see what happens when we also mix in having beginning inventory. All right. So there you go. $37.70. So that's how much goods we have available. Now, let's go ahead and calculate what our total quantity of cost of goods sold is. If we started off with $27.30, right, including all returns, so it's all gone, this is how much we have available. And we know that we counted a total of $12.50 in our inventory. How much items did we sell?
1480.
$14.80. Okay, now we're going to calculate our cost of goods sold. So this is where it's going to be very tricky, but this is where you also need to pay attention because, again, this is the tricky part here. Oh, excuse me, sorry. Let me go back up. There you go. So I'm going to go ahead and put my formula in here so we know what everything is. Okay? And let's get started. So our method, what is our costing method going to be?
FIFO.
What does that mean?
First in, first out.
First in, first out. So by understanding that concept, which batch are we actually taking out from first?
June 5th.
June 5th. Okay. Now here's the question. Our total original purchases was 1,000 items. Now the question is, do we actually have 1,000 items?
What is the last one?
So again, we originally purchased 1,000 items. Now, do we actually still have 1,000 items?
Yes.
Why? right, I'll ask you in another way. On June 5th, we purchased 1,000 items. But what happened on June 7th?
You return 200.
So do we actually truly have 1,000 items?
No.
No. We only have 800. So this is where you're going to have to take your original quantity and you're going to subtract out what you actually returned. So in this case, I returned and I have 800 left. Now I just entered it into Excel just so that I could be as precise as possible. Again, we can do this calculation in your head, but sometimes, like, again, we can mistake and fat finger another number. So there you go. So we actually take 1,000 and we subtract the 200. Okay? Now, that means my cost per item is actually going to change. Because now, not only do I have to adjust my cost or my quantity, I also have to adjust my total cost. So since my original purchases, right, including everything, is reflecting to me as 10,500, right? Oh, I'm sorry, 1050. I don't know where I got that number, sorry. 1050, okay? Now we're going to be looking at, well, we had to also return a section of that money. We had to return 200 of that 200 out of those. So my total cost now is going to be a total of 850. Okay? Now let's look back here. You could just do it here. You could do 800 times $1 gives you 800 plus 50, give you a total of 850. Okay? But in this case, you have a total cost. All you have to do is subtract what you actually got back. Because remember, this doesn't include freight, so you shouldn't worry about anything else. Okay? So this is safe to do. You take your total cost of 1050, you subtract what you return to get a grand total of 850. Okay? Now this is where you have to recalculate your total cost. So in this case, I have 850 divided by 800. So my unit cost or my cost per item is going to be
Average.
625.
$1.62. Now, because the assumption here is that we're utilizing the FIFO method, we're getting rid of the entire 800 anyway. So this step right here is unnecessary because we're going to get rid of a batch anyway. So we're getting rid of the whole 800 at the original cost, at the updated cost of 850. Okay, so here now we have a total of 800 items sold at 850. Right? So this is us just making adjustments so we are aware of what we actually have versus what we are looking at from original purchases, right? We need to look at what we actually have. Okay? Is everyone good so far? Everyone followed along, okay? Everyone knows where this 800 came from?
Yep.
Okay? And where this 850 came from? Okay? All right, so our goal is to sell 1,480 toys. We've only sold 800 so far. So what's the next batch that we're actually going to go ahead and dive into? Let me go ahead and cross this out so you guys are aware that we got rid of this one. So what's the next? June 10th for 850. Now, let's look carefully. Do we actually have all 850 items?
No,
Why?
because we had to return 50 toys.
Now, did we actually return 50 toys?
No.
No, take discount.
We only took a discount. We didn't actually physically return them. Good. So, do we have all 850 toys?
Yes.
Yes, we do, because in this case, we kept the items, right? So, 850. And if we go out to our little returns and allowances, we recognize that here. we only got a discount, so we still have the 1850 items. Now let's go ahead and adjust the cost because now we got a discount off the original price. So if it cost me in grand total 1107.50 and I got a discount of 12.50, how much is actually going to be my total cost for these 850 items?
$1,095.
1,095 even. Perfect. Good. Now, let's go ahead and let's look at the bottom. How many items did we sell in total?
1650.
Now, how many items were we supposed to sell?
1480.
1480. We went over by 200. So now, this is where we got to now actually calculate the cost per item, right? So this is where we got to take our 1095 and divide it by our 850 to get us our new cost per item. Okay? Now, how many items do we actually need to sell?
680.
680 is going to actually bring us to yes, 1480. Good. So if each cost per item with the adjustment is now $1.288235, now this is where we got to do our equal round equation because we need a rounded answer. Okay. So how much in total did I actually sell for those 680 items?
$875.99. Too many nines here.
Okay, so 99999 is gonna you're gonna automatically assume you're gonna round up that penny. If you round up that penny, it affects all three numbers. So you're actually roughly gonna get exactly 876. Because 875.99999 is gonna round you up to the nearest dollar. So there you go. That's how you do rounding. If it's 99999, you're going to round that 9, the latest penny, round it up, which makes it 0. Then you're going to bring it across. So there you go. It's 876 even in this case. Okay. Good. Now that we have our grand total, right, we sold 1480 and it's going to cost me a grand total of $17.26. Okay? Which then my ending inventory is going to be $20.44. Okay? So now that we finally reached our end of our table, so again, that was a little complicated. Now we can go ahead and finish up our last portion, which is our conversion entry. So if you guys remember, how do we do our conversion entry? What's the first thing that we got to recognize? What's the first thing we got to recognize?
Accounts payable.
Not accounts payable. We're not dealing with accounts payable anymore.
So we put
The inventory.
Inventory, right? This is the section where we're converting our purchases into our inventory. Okay? So we're going to recognize inventory. Now, What was the specific item I actually purchased for inventory?
Toys.
Toys. Yes. Okay. What's the next thing I'm going to also recognize?
Cost of goods.
You're going to recognize that you don't have everything in your purchases. You actually sold some of them along the way. Cost of goods sold. Okay. Now, what else are you going to recognize?
So here we have returns and
Returns
discount.
and allowances.
Correct. You have your purchases, your purchase returns and allowances, right? If we're zeroing them out in every single account, you can expect that purchase returns and allowances is going to be one of those things you have to zero out as well. Okay. And then what else is there?
Purchase expense and freight expense.
Good. Okay, so let's go ahead and go through all these numbers. So first things first is, what was my actual ending inventory?
1250.
$12.50 costed me at how much?
2044.
$2,044. What was the total cost of goods sold?
1480.
At how much?
726.
$17.26. What was my total purchase returns and allowances?
242.50.
4250.
Yes, $242.50. And then what was my total purchases?
3770.
$37.70 is my total net purchases, including 38.62.50, right? My total net purchases that I originally purchased it with. And then how much was my freight?
150.
$150. Okay. So now that I have this, I'm going to double confirm that just to make sure that my debits and credits match. And in this case, do they match?
Yes.
For 40, 12, 50. They match on both sides. And where did this number come from now? It actually came from adding together your total purchases. Okay. So it's this number right here, your total purchases. Okay. So good. Now that a lot of our numbers match and just the way of everything is, we've completed our first round of inventory worksheet. We got to take a look at what happens when we have a return and allowances, right? How it affects our inventory and how we choose to calculate it in periodic inventory. Okay. Now, right now it's 10 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and stop here. And we're going to continue on the next section when we come back from the break. And we're going to make it a little more easier this time. No more journalizing. So we're just going to practice plugging all of our answers into the worksheet and calculating from there and so on and so forth. All right. So with that being said, it is exactly 10:01. Go ahead and take a nice 20-minute break and be back by 10:20. Okay, I'll see you guys back.